Ambassador Helen Wright had been insulted many times during her 5 years representing Earth at the Galactic Council, but today was different. Today people were dying while the Council did nothing. "Please," Helen said, standing before the assembly of alien representatives. Her voice remained steady despite the rage building inside her. "The Krathen are attacking Haven's Rest right now. 50,000 human civilians are under bombardment. The treaties clearly state that system belongs to Earth. We need Council intervention immediately." War Leader Krex, the Krathen representative, lounged in his seat with obvious contempt. His reptilian features twisted into something that might have been a smile. "The system was ours long before your species crawled out of your primitive world. We are simply reclaiming what belongs to us." "The treaties," Helen began. "Mean nothing," Krex interrupted, his voice a deep rumble. "Your kind has been part of this council for barely 3 decades. You are children playing at civilization. The Krathen Empire has existed for 10,000 years. We do not need permission to take what is rightfully ours." Helen turned to the other council members, desperately seeking support. The Savaran representative, a tall being with pale blue skin and large black eyes, simply looked away. The Savaran were telepaths and scholars, supposedly wise and fair. But they had never once supported human proposals in council sessions. "Honored Severan," Helen addressed them directly, "will you at least call for a ceasefire while this matter is investigated?" The Savaran's mental voice echoed in everyone's minds, cold and distant. "This is a dispute between lesser species. The Severan do not involve themselves in such minor conflicts. You must resolve this yourselves." The Volnir merchant representative, a floating creature covered in silver scales, made a sound like wind chimes that the translators interpreted as laughter. Perhaps if humanity had focused on building economic power, instead of expanding into resource-poor systems, you would have leverage to negotiate. As it stands, you have nothing we want. Helen felt her hands clench into fists. 30 years. For 30 years, humanity had followed every rule, respected every custom, tried to be good members of the Galactic Council. And for 30 years they had been dismissed, patronized, and treated like ignorant children. Now people were dying and these arrogant aliens would not even pretend to care. "Then humanity will handle this ourselves," Helen said quietly. She turned and walked out of the council chambers, her footsteps echoing in the massive hall. Light years away, Captain Ryan Blake stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Defiant, watching the worst thing he had ever seen. Haven's Rest colony spread across the view screen, its domed cities glowing against the dark planet's surface. Above those cities, 3 Krathen warships were firing methodically, their energy weapons tearing through defensive shields like they were made of paper. "Captain, we're receiving hundreds of distress calls," his communications officer reported, her voice shaking. "The main hospital just took a direct hit. They're reporting casualties in the thousands." Ryan's jaw tightened. The Defiant was a good ship, one of Earth's best, but it was 1 destroyer against 3 Krathen battlecruisers. The math was simple and brutal. "Hail the Krathen vessels," Ryan ordered. The face that appeared on screen was typical Krathen, scaled green skin, yellow eyes with slit pupils, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. The Krathen commander looked at Ryan with open amusement. "A human ship," the Krathen said. "How adorable. You should leave now, little human, before you get hurt." "You're attacking a civilian colony in violation of council treaties," Ryan said, keeping his voice level. "Ceasefire immediately and withdraw, or we will engage." The Krathen commander laughed, a harsh sound that made Ryan's skin crawl. "You will engage? With 1 pathetic ship? I have destroyed entire fleets, human. Your vessel is barely worth the energy to fire upon. But if you insist on dying today, I will happily accommodate you." The communication cut off. Below, another section of the colony exploded as Krathen weapons found their mark. Ryan could see the tiny shapes of evacuation ships trying to launch, many of them destroyed before they could even leave the surface. "Orders, Captain?" his first officer asked quietly. Ryan wanted to fight. Everything in him screamed to attack those Krathen ships to make them pay for what they were doing. But he had 800 crew members depending on him to make smart decisions, not emotional ones. And the cold truth was that the Defiant could not win this fight. "Continue broadcasting the attack on all frequencies," Ryan said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "Make sure Earth Command sees everything, and get every piece of evidence we can. Record everything." They stayed for 3 hours documenting the massacre. By the time the Krathen ships finally left, Satisfied with the destruction they had caused, over 2,000 colonists were dead. Ryan stood on his bridge watching the burning cities and felt something break inside him. "Take us home," he said quietly. "Earth needs to see this." 2 days later, Helen stood in the presidential briefing room on Earth. President Nathan Cross sat at the head of the table, his face grim as he watched the recordings from Haven's Rest. Around the table sat Fleet Admiral Linda Martinez and the Joint Chiefs of Earth's military forces. The recordings played without sound, but they did not need sound. The images spoke clearly enough. Children's hospitals exploding, evacuation ships being shot down, civilians running in panic while Krathan weapons carved through the colony like a butcher's knife through meat. When the recording ended, the room was silent for a long moment. "The Council won't help us," Helen said into that silence. "They see us as children, primitives who don't matter. They'll watch us die and feel nothing." Admiral Martinez leaned forward. She was a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. "Mr. President, I think it's time we showed them exactly how primitive we are." President Cross looked at her sharply. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" "With your permission, sir, I'd like to show you some classified projects," Martinez said. "Things we've been developing quietly over the past 30 years. You see, we knew this might happen eventually. We knew that respect wasn't something the Council would give freely, so we prepared for the day when we'd have to demand it." The Admiral activated a holographic display. Images appeared showing shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, weapons, research facilities on distant moons, and most impressively, a fleet of warships that was far larger than anyone outside Earth's military knew existed. "For 3 decades, these aliens have dismissed us," Martinez continued. "They think our technology is primitive. They think we're weak. They've made their estimates based on the ships we let them see, the weapons we showed them in joint exercises. They have no idea what we're actually capable of." President Cross studied the displays, his expression unreadable. "How many ships are we talking about, Admiral?" 87 combat vessels, sir, plus carriers, support ships, and advanced weapons platforms, and our technology is at least a generation ahead of most Council species. We've been innovating while they've been stagnating." "This could start a war," the President said quietly. "With respect, sir." Helen spoke up. "The war has already started. The Krathan attacked our colony. They killed our people. The only question now is whether we respond or whether we let them think they can do it again whenever they want." President Cross was quiet for a long time, staring at the frozen image on the screen showing a Krathan warship firing on a hospital. Finally, he looked up at Admiral Martinez. "Make your preparations, Admiral," he said. "But I want one thing perfectly clear. We are not conquerors. We are not going to become the thing we hate. We hit military targets only. We show overwhelming force but controlled violence. We prove we can fight, but we also prove we can show restraint. Understood?" "Understood, sir," Martinez replied. The President stood and everyone rose with him. "Then let's show the Galactic Council what happens when you push humanity too far. They wanted to see us as primitive? Fine. Let's show them exactly how dangerous primitives can be when you threaten their families." As the meeting broke up, Helen walked to the window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krathan were celebrating their victory. The Council was dismissing human concerns as usual. All of them thought humanity would accept this insult and move on. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The age of human patience was over. The age of human power was about to begin. Admiral Linda Martinez stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's military headquarters, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship positions across human space. Around her, the best military minds humanity had produced studied the data with intense focus. "Show them everything," Martinez ordered. The lights dimmed, and the room filled with images. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter flickered to life first. Massive construction facilities that had been disguised as mining operations for decades. Then came the outer system yards near Saturn, Neptune, and beyond. Every display showed the same thing. Warships. Dozens and dozens of warships. "Sweet mercy," breathed Commander Jake Sullivan, one of the younger officers present. He commanded the carrier ship Victory, but even he had not known the full extent of Earth's hidden fleet. "We've been building quietly for 30 years, Martinez explained. Every time the Council dismissed us, every time they treated us like children, we built another ship. Every time they underestimated our technology, we developed something better. They think they know what humanity is capable of. They don't know anything. She pulled up technical specifications that made several officers lean forward with interest. The new quantum jump drives that could move ships across star systems in hours instead of days. Plasma weapons that burned hotter than anything the Krathen used. Shield harmonics that Dr. Amy Foster's team had perfected after years of studying captured alien technology. Dr. Foster, give us the summary, Martinez said. A woman in her 40s with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun stepped forward. Amy Foster had been Earth's lead weapons researcher for a decade, and her innovations had changed everything. The Council species have been using the same basic technology for centuries, Amy explained. They improve it incrementally, but they don't innovate. They don't have to, because they've never faced a real challenge. We, on the other hand, had to innovate just to survive. Our jump drives are faster. Our weapons hit harder. Our shields adapt in real time to incoming fire. In a straight fight ship for ship, we have the advantage. What about numbers? Asked Colonel Marcus Stone, the scarred veteran who commanded Earth's Marine forces. The Krathen alone have hundreds of warships, which is why we don't fight fair, Martinez replied with a thin smile. We use tactics they've never seen. We hit fast, hit hard, and disappear before they can respond. We use our technology advantage to make every engagement a slaughter in our favor. She pulled up a star map showing Krathen territory. One system was highlighted in red, Fortress Prime, the Krathen military station that coordinated all their raiding operations into human space. This is our first target, Martinez announced. We take out Fortress Prime and we send a message that cannot be ignored. The age of attacking humanity without consequences is over. Over the next week, Earth's military mobilized with efficiency that would have surprised the Council species who thought humans were disorganized and chaotic. Ships moved from hidden positions to assembly points. Crews were briefed. Weapons were loaded. The largest military operation in human history was being prepared in absolute secrecy. Captain Ryan Blake walked through the corridors of his ship, the Defiant, and marveled at the changes. In just 5 days, his destroyer had been completely upgraded. New weapons, new shields, new engines. The ship that had been forced to watch helplessly at Haven's Rest was now a predator. Captain, you need to see this, his chief engineer called from the engine room. Ryan found her standing next to the new quantum drive, a massive piece of technology that hummed with barely contained power. We just finished the first full test, she said, her eyes shining with excitement. Sir, we can jump from Earth to Fortress Prime in 6 hours. 6 hours. The Krathen think it takes 3 days. We can hit them before they even know we're coming. Ryan felt a grim satisfaction settle into his chest. Good, make sure every system is perfect. When we go in, there won't be room for mistakes. Across Earth and Mars, similar preparations were underway. Lieutenant Sophie Grant, a young pilot with a reputation for unconventional tactics, briefed her squadron on the new fighters they would be flying. Sleek, fast, and deadly, the fighters incorporated technology that made them nearly invisible to Krathen sensors until they opened fire. I know you're used to flying defensively, Sophie told her pilots, but that's over. These new birds are predators, and so are we. We're going to show the Krathen what happens when you hunt humans. In the intelligence division, Lieutenant Danny Ward compiled every piece of information his network had gathered on Krathen military operations. Danny was a quiet man who most people overlooked, which made him perfect for intelligence work. He had spent years infiltrating Council communication networks, gathering data that even the Council members themselves did not know he had access to. Admiral, I have complete schematics of Fortress Prime, Danny reported to Martinez. Defense positions, shield generators, command centers, everything. I can tell you exactly where to hit to disable them with minimal casualties. Minimal casualties? Colonel Stone raised an eyebrow. They massacred our people at Haven's Rest, which is exactly why we need to be better than them, Martinez replied firmly. We fight with precision. We disable, not destroy. We capture, not kill. The galaxy is watching, even if they don't know it yet. When they see the recordings of this battle, they need to see that humanity fights with honor even against dishonorable enemies. The strike force began assembling at a staging point beyond Neptune's orbit. 12 warships in total, led by Commander Jake Sullivan's carrier Victory. Ryan Blake's upgraded Defiant was there, along with destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels. It was not the largest fleet humanity could field, but it was more than enough for what they needed to do. Jake stood on Victory's bridge, looking at the assembled fleet through his view screen. He was 32 years old, the youngest carrier commander in Earth's Navy. Some older officers resented his rapid promotion, but Martinez had seen something in him, the ability to think in 3 dimensions, to see the battlefield not as a flat plane, but as a dynamic sphere where anything was possible. All ships. "This is Sullivan," Jake broadcasted to the fleet. "In 6 hours, we jump to Fortress Prime. Our mission is simple: disable the station and destroy their ability to launch raids into human space. But remember what Admiral Martinez said: we are not murderers. We give them every chance to evacuate. We only use lethal force if we have no other choice. We're going to win this fight, and we're going to do it the human way, with overwhelming skill, not overwhelming cruelty." As the crews made final preparations, messages arrived from Earth. President Nathan Cross sent personal recordings to each ship, thanking them for their service and reminding them that they carried humanity's honor into battle. Ambassador Helen Wright sent tactical intelligence from her sources in the Council, information that would help them anticipate Krathan responses. But the message that resonated most came from Haven's Rest colony itself. The survivors, still digging through rubble and burying their dead, sent a simple statement: make them understand. Make them know that human lives matter. Sophie Grant sat in her fighter's cockpit reading that message over and over. She had lost her sister at Haven's Rest. Her sister had been a teacher at that hospital the Krathan destroyed. Sophie had joined the military after that, driven by rage and grief. But Admiral Martinez had helped her understand that rage was a fire that could either consume her or forge her into something stronger. "For Sarah," Sophie whispered, touching the small photo she kept in her cockpit. Her sister's smiling face looked back at her. "This is for you." When the 6 hours were up, Commander Jake Sullivan gave the order that would change galactic history. "All ships, jump on my mark." 3, 2, 1 mark. Space twisted as 12 human warships engaged their quantum drive simultaneously. To an outside observer, they simply vanished, leaving not even a ripple. The journey that should have taken 3 days took 6 hours, and when they emerged in the Fortress Prime system, the Krathan were completely unprepared. The station hung in space like a massive metal flower, bristling with weapons and surrounded by 3 battleships and hundreds of fighters. It was the pride of Krathan military might, considered impregnable. The Krathan commander on duty was so confident in his defenses that he had not even bothered to activate full sensor sweeps. That confidence lasted exactly until the moment 12 human warships appeared in his system, without any warning. "This is Commander Jake Sullivan, of the Earth Defense Forces." Jake broadcasted on all frequencies. "Fortress Prime, you are ordered to power down your weapons and evacuate immediately. You have attacked human civilians. You have violated Council treaties. You are now a military target. You have 30 minutes to comply." The Krathan commander's response was predictable. "You dare threaten us? You pathetic humans actually think you can challenge the Krathan Empire? We will destroy you." Jake sighed. He had hoped they would be smarter. But if the Krathan wanted to fight, humanity was more than ready to teach them a lesson they would never forget. "All ships," Jake said calmly, "execute attack pattern Alpha. Let's show them what humans can do." The battle for Fortress Prime began with Sophie Grant's fighter squadron screaming out of Victory's launch bays at speeds that made Krathan sensors think they were seeing weapons fire, not ships. 200 human fighters spread across the battlefield like a swarm of angry hornets, each one moving in patterns that defied traditional combat doctrine. Sophie led the charge, her fighter dancing through space in ways that should have been impossible. She flew like she was an atmosphere, not vacuum, treating 3-dimensional space as if it had horizons and gravity. It was unorthodox, even crazy by normal standards, but it worked. "Gold Squadron, hit the left flank defense grid," Sophie ordered, her fingers flying across her controls. "Silver Squadron, you're with me. We're going after those battleships." The Krathan defenders responded exactly as their doctrine demanded. They formed a defensive wall, coordinating their fire to create overlapping fields of destruction. It was a tactic that had worked for them for thousands of years against enemies who followed similar rules. But humans did not follow those rules. Sophie's fighters split into 3 groups at the last moment, coming at the battleships from angles the Krathan had left undefended, because their textbook said those angles could not be attacked from. The first battleship's shields flickered and failed as concentrated plasma fire from 30 fighters hit the same point simultaneously. The ship did not explode. Instead, its systems simply shut down, disabled by precision strikes on its power generators. "One down," Sophie reported. "Gold Squadron status." "Defense grid is offline," came the response. "Moving to target 2. On Victory's Bridge, Commander Jake Sullivan watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. The fighter assault was just the opening move. Now it was time for the real show. "All cruisers begin jump pattern Delta," Jake ordered. "I want constant motion. Don't give them a stationary target." Human warships began blinking in and out of existence across the battlefield, using their quantum drives in ways the Krathen had never imagined. A destroyer would appear directly behind a Krathen ship, fire a devastating salvo into its engines, then jump away before return fire could land. Cruisers materialized at random points, launched missiles, and vanished. The Krathen formation, designed for traditional broadside combat, fell apart under the chaos. Captain Ryan Blake commanded Defiant with cold precision. His ship had been outmatched at Haven's Rest, forced to watch while civilians died. That would never happen again. "Target the station's command tower," Ryan ordered. "I want surgical strikes on their coordination systems. Cut off their ability to organize a defense." Defiant jumped into close range of Fortress Prime, shields flaring as they absorbed incoming fire. Ryan's weapons officer was a young woman named Kelly Chen, and she had the steadiest hands he had ever seen. Her plasma cannons fired with impossible accuracy, each shot hitting exactly where it needed to. The station's command tower exploded in a shower of debris, but the explosion was controlled, venting into space rather than into inhabited sections. "Command structure is down," Kelly reported. "The station is blind." Colonel Marcus Stone watched the battle from the assault ship Hammer, waiting for his moment. His Marines were the best humanity could produce, veterans who had trained for every possible scenario. When Jake Sullivan gave him the signal, Marcus smiled grimly. "All teams go," he ordered. 20 Marine shuttles launched from Hammer, using the chaos of the battle as cover. But these were not normal insertion craft. They were equipped with experimental teleportation technology that Dr. Amy Foster's team had perfected just weeks ago. The shuttles got close to Fortress Prime. Then the Marines simply vanished from the shuttles and reappeared inside the station. The Krathen defenders inside the station suddenly found themselves facing human soldiers who fought with a ferocity they had not expected. Marcus led one team personally, moving through the station's corridors with brutal efficiency. They used stun weapons when possible, lethal force only when necessary. Their goal was not massacre, but capture. "Team 3, secure engineering," Marcus called over the comm. "Team 5, you have the armory. Everyone else, push toward the command center. We're taking control of this station." The Krathen soldiers fought back with desperate courage, but they had trained to fight other Krathen, enemies who followed predictable tactics. Humans fought differently. They used their environment, setting traps and ambushes. They moved in small, fluid teams instead of rigid formations, and they never ever gave up. In space, the battle was turning decisively. 2 of the 3 Krathen battleships were disabled, drifting hulks with their crews evacuating in escape pods. The 3rd battleship's commander, seeing the situation was hopeless, made the smart choice and surrendered. Sophie's fighters formed a protective screen around it, preventing any Krathen diehards from destroying it, rather than letting it be captured. The station's shields failed completely as power systems overloaded from the concentrated human assault. Jake Sullivan saw his opportunity and took it. "All ships, cease fire," he ordered. Then, broadcasting on all frequencies, "Fortress Prime, this is Commander Sullivan. Your defenses have failed. Your fleet is defeated. You have 2 choices. Surrender immediately, or we will disable your life support systems and evacuate you by force. You have 5 minutes to decide." On the station, the Krathen commander was being dragged from his command chair by Colonel Marcus Stone's Marines. The commander was a massive reptilian covered in ceremonial armor, and he fought every step of the way. But 3 human Marines in powered armor were more than a match for him. "Your station is forfeit," Marcus told the commander flatly. "Order your people to stand down and you all get to live. Keep fighting, and you'll watch your soldiers die for nothing." The Krathen commander looked at Marcus with hatred burning in his yellow eyes, but he was not stupid. He had watched the humans fight with a combination of skill and restraint that spoke of professional military training. These were not the primitives he had expected. These were warriors who knew exactly what they were doing. "We surrender," the commander finally growled. The battle for Fortress Prime had lasted 3 hours and 17 minutes. Human forces had disabled or captured every major Krathan asset in the system. Total Krathan casualties were remarkably low, less than 200 dead, and most of those had been accidents or soldiers who chose to fight to the death. Human casualties were even lower, 43 wounded, 7 dead. As Krathan prisoners were processed and evacuated to their homeworld in their own ships, Commander Jake Sullivan prepared the message that would change everything. He stood on Victory's bridge, the damaged bulk of Fortress Prime visible through the main view screen, and recorded a broadcast that would be sent on every communication frequency the Council used. "This is Commander Jake Sullivan of the Earth Defense Forces speaking to the Galactic Council," Jake said, his voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. "For 30 years, humanity has asked for respect. For 30 years, we have been dismissed as primitive, as weak, as unworthy of consideration. When Krathan forces attacked our colony at Haven's Rest and killed our civilians, we asked the Council for help. You refused." He paused, letting that sink in. "So we helped ourselves. Fortress Prime, the station that coordinated attacks on human space, is now under human control. The Krathan fleet stationed here has been defeated. We achieved this with minimal casualties because we are not barbarians. We are not conquerors. But we are also no longer victims." Jake's expression hardened. "From this moment forward, any attack on human territory will be met with overwhelming force. We seek peace. We want cooperation. But we will have respect, whether you give it freely or we demand it at the point of a gun. The choice is yours, Galactic Council. We are done asking permission to exist," the broadcast ended. Within hours, it would reach every council world, every species, every government. The galaxy would watch the recordings of the battle, see how completely humanity had defeated a supposedly superior Krathan force, and realize that everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. On Victory's bridge, Ryan Blake walked up to stand beside Jake. "Think that will get their attention?" Ryan asked. "Oh, it will get their attention," Jake replied. "The question is what they'll do with it." Back on Earth, Admiral Martinez watched the battle recordings with President Nathan Cross and Ambassador Helen Wright. When Jake's broadcast finished, there was silence in the room. "Well," the president finally said, "I think we just announced ourselves to the galaxy in a way they can't ignore. The Krathan will want revenge," Helen warned. "Their pride has been wounded. They'll see this as an insult that can only be washed away with blood." Martinez nodded. "I'm counting on it. Let them come. We've shown we can beat them in one engagement. Now we need to prove it was not a fluke. We need to demonstrate that human military power is consistent, overwhelming, and here to stay." "What's your recommendation, Admiral?" the president asked. "We prepare for their counterattack," Martinez said. "They'll gather their forces and come for Earth or Mars, trying to restore their honor by destroying something important to us. When they do, we'll be ready, and we'll teach them a lesson they'll never forget." Helen looked at the star map showing human space. "This is really..." War Leader Krex stood before the Krathan High Command, his scaled fists clenched so tightly that his claws drew blood from his own palms. The holographic display behind him showed the humiliating recordings from Fortress Prime, human ships appearing and disappearing at will, Krathan battleships disabled by primitive fighters, and worst of all, the station itself in human hands. "This insult cannot stand," Krex snarled. "The humans have made us look weak before the entire galaxy. Every species is watching, wondering if the mighty Krathan Empire can be challenged by anyone. If we do not respond with overwhelming force, we will lose more than territory. We will lose fear, and without fear, we lose everything." The eldest member of the High Command, Supreme General Vax, studied the recordings with cold, analytical eyes. "The humans fought well, better than our intelligence predicted. Their technology is more advanced than we believed. They are still primitives," Krex insisted. "They won through surprise and trickery. In open battle with superior numbers, we will crush them." "How many ships do you need?" Vax asked. 50 warships, Krex replied immediately. "The largest fleet assembled in a century. We will strike at their Mars colonies, their industrial heartland. 2 million humans live there. When we are done, Mars will be a graveyard, and Earth will understand what happens when you challenge the Krathen Empire. Vax was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. Assemble your fleet, War Leader Krex. Restore our honor. Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. The message reached Earth's intelligence network within hours. Lieutenant Danny Ward burst into Admiral Martinez's office with the intercepted communications, his face pale. Admiral, the Krathen are coming, Danny reported. 50 warships, the largest force they have fielded in generations. Their target is Mars. Martinez did not look surprised. Expected arrival time? 4 days given their slower jump drives, Danny said. He pulled up the tactical data. Ma'am, they outnumber our Mars defensive fleet significantly. Even with our technological advantage, those are bad odds. Then we improved the odds, Martinez replied calmly. She activated her communicator. Get me Commander Sullivan, Commodore Blake, and Colonel Stone. Tell them we're defending Mars and we're going to make the Krathen wish they had stayed home. 3 days later, Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the Bridge of Victory, now positioned in Mars orbit with the largest human fleet ever assembled in one place. 30 warships, 10 carriers loaded with fighters, and numerous support vessels. It was everything humanity could spare without leaving Earth defenseless. They're coming in hot, Jake's sensor officer reported. 50 Krathen vessels, just like intelligence predicted. They're not even trying to be subtle. Jake studied the tactical display. The Krathen fleet was advancing in a traditional formation. Battleships in the center, cruisers on the flanks, destroyers screening. It was textbook Krathen doctrine, which meant it was predictable. All ships, this is Sullivan, Jake broadcasted to the fleet. Remember the plan. We do not meet them head-on. We use mobility, coordination, and precision. Make every shot count. Protect the civilians on Mars at all costs, and show these Krathen bastards that humans protect their own. Commodore Ryan Blake commanded a task force of 6 destroyers, his flag flying from the upgraded Defiant. His orders were simple but dangerous. Harass the Krathen flanks, draw their fire, and create openings for the main fleet. It was the job that would take the most casualties, and Ryan had volunteered for it without hesitation. All ships, weapons free, Ryan ordered as the Krathen fleet entered range. Hit and run just like we practiced. Don't give them a stationary target. Defiant and her sister ships blinked into existence on the Krathen left flank, fired devastating salvos into their cruiser screen, then jumped away before return fire could land. The Krathen formation rippled as ships tried to respond to threats that appeared and vanished like ghosts. Sophie Grant led 500 fighters into the chaos, her gold squadron flying point. The fighters dove through the Krathen formation like knives targeting shield generators and weapons systems with surgical precision. They're trying to lock us down with tractor beams, one of Sophie's pilots called out. Then don't stay still long enough for them to grab you, Sophie replied, rolling her fighter through a series of maneuvers that would have torn apart a less advanced craft. Her plasma cannon stitched a line across a Krathen battleship's hull, and she felt grim satisfaction as secondary explosions blossomed along her attack run. The battle quickly became a nightmare for the Krathen. They had planned for a traditional engagement, slugging it out broadside to broadside until firepower decided the victor. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to play by those rules. Human ships appeared behind them, beside them, above and below them, always firing from unexpected angles before vanishing. War Leader Krex screamed orders from his flagship, trying to maintain formation cohesion. But his fleet was falling apart. His tactical officers, trained in rigid doctrine, could not adapt fast enough to the fluid chaos of human combat tactics. All ships converge on the human carrier, Krex ordered, spotting Victory at the center of the human formation. If we destroy their command ship, the rest will break. 20 Krathen vessels turned their full attention on Victory. Jake saw them coming and smiled coldly. Now, he said simply. It was the trap they had been waiting for. As the Krathen ships focused on Victory, human vessels that had been hiding in Mars's shadow using stealth technology suddenly activated and hit the Krathen from behind. The Krathen fleet, which had thought it was attacking, suddenly found itself surrounded. Colonel Marcus Stone's assault ships launched from hidden positions on Mars's moons. His Marines teleported directly onto damaged Krathen vessels, appearing in engineering sections and command centers. Within minutes, 3 Krathen ships were captured from within, their crews surrendering to human soldiers who seemed to materialize out of nowhere. "This is what you get," Marcus said to a captured Krathen captain, his voice hard. "When you threaten human civilians, you wanted to make Mars a graveyard? We're making your fleet a trophy." Ryan Blake's Defiant took heavy fire protecting a civilian transport that had wandered too close to the battle. Energy weapons carved through his shields, and then through his hull. Alarms screamed as sections of the ship vented atmosphere. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7, his damage control officer reported. "We've lost main power to weapons array 2. Ryan gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered under another impact. "Reroute auxiliary power to shields. All hands, damage control teams to breach sites. We're not dying today." A massive explosion rocked the ship as a Krathen missile slipped through their weakened defenses. Ryan was thrown from his chair, blood running from a cut on his forehead. Around him, the bridge crew struggled to maintain control as systems failed. "Captain, we need to fall back," his first officer urged. Ryan pulled himself up, wiping blood from his eyes. On his view screen, he could see the civilian transport, slow and vulnerable, still trying to reach safety. If Defiant retreated, that transport would be exposed. "Negative," Ryan said. "Bring us between that transport and the Krathen fleet. All remaining power to forward shields. If they want to hurt those civilians, they'll have to go through us first." Defiant limped into position, its battered hull absorbing fire meant for the civilian ship. On the transport, 10,000 families watched in awe as the damaged warship positioned itself as their shield, taking punishment that would have torn them apart. The battle raged for 6 brutal hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Human tactics, technology, and sheer determination overwhelmed Krathen numbers. One by one, Krathen ships were disabled, captured, or forced to surrender. Those that tried to flee found human destroyers waiting at the jump points, cutting off their escape. When the last Krathen vessel finally lowered its shields in surrender, the tally was devastating for the Krathen. 30 ships destroyed or captured, the rest fleeing in disorder. Human losses were significant but manageable. 5 ships destroyed, another dozen damaged, including Defiant. War leader Krex, his flagship disabled and surrounded, refused to surrender. He ordered his remaining crew to fight to the death. Colonel Marcus Stone's Marines boarded the flagship anyway, stunning the crew with non-lethal weapons and dragging Krex from his command throne. "You cannot defeat us," Krex snarled as Marcus's Marines held him. "The Krathen Empire spans 1,000 worlds. We will never stop coming for you." Marcus looked at the Krathen commander with cold contempt. "Then we'll never stop beating you. Every time you come for us, we'll send you home in pieces. Eventually, even you will learn." On Victory's Bridge, Jake Sullivan watched the last Krathen ships jump away and retreat. The space around Mars was littered with debris and disabled vessels, but the colonies were safe. 2 million humans could sleep tonight knowing their military had protected them. "All ships, this is Sullivan," Jake broadcasted. "Well done. You fought with honor and skill. You proved that humanity stands together, that we protect our own, and that anyone who threatens us will pay the price. Mars stands, humanity stands, and the galaxy is learning to respect that." On Earth, President Nathan Cross and Admiral Martinez watched the Volnir Trade Federation's central chamber was a place of careful deals and calculated profits. The floating silver beings who ran the Federation prided themselves on staying neutral in all conflicts, selling to whoever paid the highest price. They had grown wealthy over millennia by never taking sides, always playing both ends against the middle, which was why Lieutenant Danny Ward felt such satisfaction when he presented his findings to Admiral Martinez. "The Volnir have been selling weapons to both sides," Danny explained, pulling up financial records that his intelligence network had painstakingly assembled. "They sold defense systems to the Krathen right before the Mars attack. Then they offered to sell us the same systems at triple the price. They're war profiteers, pure and simple." Admiral Martinez studied the evidence with narrowed eyes. "They're using the conflict to line their pockets while humans and Krathen die. How much profit have they made?" Billions in the past month alone, Danny replied. And according to their internal communications, they're planning to continue selling to the Krathen despite their defeats. As long as there's a war, the Volnir make money. Then we're going to teach them that some wars are bad for business, Martinez said coldly. She pulled up a star map showing Volnir trade routes. President Cross approved Operation Economic Pressure this morning. Let's show the galaxy what happens when you try to profit from human suffering. 2 days later, Volnir merchant ships began finding their trade routes blocked. Human vessels appeared at strategic jump points, not attacking but simply preventing passage. No shots were fired. No threats were made. Human captains simply stated that until the Volnir ceased selling weapons to the Krathen, their ships would not be allowed to pass through human-controlled space. At first, the Volnir tried to go around, but human ships appeared at every alternate route. The Volnir tried to negotiate, offering bribes and trade deals. Human commanders politely declined. The Volnir tried to appeal to the Galactic Council, claiming human blockades violated free trade agreements. Ambassador Helen Wright stood before the council with a smile that did not reach her eyes. The Volnir claim we're violating trade agreements? How interesting. Perhaps we should discuss how the Volnir violated neutrality agreements by selling weapons to the Krathen, specifically designed to kill humans. I have financial records, shipping manifests, and communications showing this was not accidental but deliberate policy. She projected the evidence for all the council to see. The Volnir representative tried to interrupt, but Helen talked over them. The Volnir have grown fat on conflict. They profit when species go to war. Well, humanity is not interested in making them richer. Our blockade will remain in place until they agree to our terms. Within a week, Volnir profits collapsed. Ships sat in port with cargo they could not deliver. Markets that depended on Volnir trade found themselves cut off. But humans did not stop there. They used their faster ships to bypass Volnir merchants entirely, offering the same goods at lower prices using their superior jump drives. Commander Jake Sullivan led a task force that personally delivered medical supplies to a dozen smaller, council species that had been dependent on expensive Volnir trade. The supplies were provided at cost. No profit margin, just a demonstration of what humanity could offer. We don't want to control galactic trade, Jake explained to one grateful species representative. We just want fair trade. The Volnir charged you triple what these supplies actually cost because they knew you had no alternative. Now you do. Humanity offers partnership, not exploitation. In the Volnir central chamber, panic was spreading. Their economic empire was crumbling in real time. Ships were idle. Markets were closing. Profit margins were vanishing. And the humans showed no signs of backing down. We must negotiate, one Volnir merchant prince argued. The humans are costing us billions. If we negotiate, we show weakness, another countered. Other species will demand better terms. If we don't negotiate, we'll be bankrupt within a month, a third stated flatly. The humans have made their point. They can hurt us without firing a single shot. The Volnir Trade Federation sent envoys to Earth within 2 weeks of the blockade starting. They arrived expecting hard bargaining, expecting to negotiate favorable terms through their legendary trading skills. Instead, President Nathan Cross presented them with a simple document. These are our requirements, the president said. First, you immediately cease all weapons sales to the Krathen. Second, you share all intelligence you have on Krathen military operations as reparations for the humans killed at Haven's Rest. Third, you agree to fair trade pricing with all council species, overseen by an independent board. Fourth, you pay humanity 2 billion credits for the economic damage caused by your profiteering. The lead Volnir envoy made sounds like crashing wind chimes. This is extortion! No, Helen Wright said calmly. This is consequences. You played games with human lives. You profited from our suffering. Now you pay the price. Accept these terms or our blockade continues indefinitely, and we'll keep undercutting your prices in every market until the Volnir Trade Federation is just a memory. The Volnir agreed to every demand within the hour. But the real surprise came from the intelligence the Volnir provided. Danny Ward and his team spent 3 days going through Volnir records of their dealings with the Krathen, and what they found changed everything. Admiral, you need to see this, Danny said, bursting into Martinez's office with data files. The Krathen were planning something big. Multiple attacks on human colonies, coordinated strikes designed to force us to spread our fleet thin. But there's more. They've been communicating with a faction of Sevaran extremists who want to remove humanity from the Council entirely. Martinez felt cold anger settle in her chest. The Sevaran? I thought they stayed neutral in military conflicts. Most do, Danny confirmed. But there's a faction that believes humans are too primitive to be Council members. They've been providing intelligence to the Krathen, helping them plan attacks, and according to these communications, they were considering using their telepathic abilities to influence human leadership if the military approach failed. Attempted mind control of human government officials, Martinez said quietly. That's not just hostile. That's an act of war. She immediately contacted President Cross and Ambassador Helen Wright. Within hours, they were in an emergency meeting with the Joint Chiefs and key members of Congress. This changes everything, the President said after reviewing the evidence. If the Sevaran are actively working against us, we can't trust any diplomatic overtures they make. We need to respond, but carefully. The Sevaran are powerful, and unlike the Krathen, their strength is not just military. We need to expose them publicly, Helen suggested. Let the entire Council see what they've been doing. Many Council species respect the Sevaran. If they learn the Sevaran have been manipulating events from the shadows, it will damage their reputation far more than any military defeat. Admiral Martinez nodded. And we need to prepare defenses against telepathic attack. Dr. Amy Foster's neural shields work on individuals, but we need to scale them up. Every human in a position of authority needs protection. Over the next month, humanity quietly fortified itself against the Sevaran threat while preparing to expose their duplicity to the Council. Dr. Amy Foster worked around the clock with her team, developing enhanced neural shield technology that could protect entire facilities from telepathic intrusion. The Sevaran's telepathy works by finding receptive patterns in the target's brainwaves, Amy explained to a group of military officers being fitted with the new shields. Our technology disrupts those patterns just enough to make human minds look like static to them. They can still communicate with us if we allow it, but they can't control us or read our thoughts without permission. Meanwhile, intelligence teams compiled every piece of evidence of Sevaran interference into a comprehensive report. Communications between Sevaran extremists and Krathen war planners, records of intelligence sharing that violated Council neutrality agreements, even proof that Sevaran telepaths had attempted to influence human ambassadors during key votes. The trap was set. Now humanity just needed to spring it. Ambassador Helen Wright requested a formal Council session to discuss matters of galactic security. The Sevaran representatives attended, confident that they had covered their tracks. The Krathen, still licking their wounds from 2 devastating defeats, stayed quiet. The Volnir, chastened by their economic humiliation, kept neutral expressions. Helen stood before the assembled Council and smiled. I come before you today to discuss threats to the Council itself. Not external threats, but internal ones. Species who claim to uphold Council law while secretly working to undermine it. She activated holographic displays showing the evidence Danny's team had compiled. The Sevaran have long presented themselves as neutral, wise, above the petty conflicts of lesser species. But the evidence shows they are anything but neutral. They have been actively supporting Krathen aggression against humanity. They have been plotting to remove humans from the Council, and they have attempted to use their telepathic abilities to influence human government officials without consent, which Council law clearly defines as assault. The Krathen homeworld of Krathus Prime was a fortress, its orbital space filled with defense platforms and warships. It was here that the Krathen War Council gathered to plan their final response to humanity's insults. War leader Krex sat in chains, a prisoner aboard Commander Jake Sullivan's flagship, but his replacement was even more dangerous. Supreme General Vax was old, cunning, and unlike Krex, he learned from his mistakes. He watched the recordings of both battles humanity had won and saw what others missed. The humans were not just lucky or tricky. They were genuinely skilled, with technology and tactics that gave them real advantages. We cannot beat them the old way, Vax told the assembled War Council. They are faster, more flexible, more innovative. If we face them in open battle again, we will lose again. So we change the game entirely. He pulled up a strategic map showing not human space, but the full extent of Krathen territory. We gather our full war fleet, not 50 ships, but 200. Every vessel we can spare. And we do not attack Earth or Mars where they expect us. We strike at their homeworld directly, with overwhelming force that even human technology cannot overcome. The War Council stirred with interest. This was bold, perhaps reckless, but it was also the kind of decisive action that might restore Crathan honor. "When?" one of the council members asked. "Soon," Vax replied. "We must move before the humans, grow stronger, before they build more ships, before other species decide to join them. We gather our fleet in secret, using the outer systems the humans do not monitor. And when we are ready, we jump directly to Earth orbit and demand their surrender. If they refuse, we destroy their homeworld. It is harsh, but it is the only way to prove that the Crathan Empire cannot be defied." On Earth, Lieutenant Danny Ward's intelligence network picked up the first hints of the Crathan buildup 3 weeks after it began. Ship movements in remote systems, communications being routed through unusual channels, increased activity at Crathan military shipyards. "Something big is happening," Danny reported to Admiral Martinez. "I can't pinpoint exactly what yet, but the pattern is clear. The Crathan are planning one more major operation, and based on the scale of their preparations, it's going to be massive." Martinez immediately went into full alert. She recalled every human ship that could be spared, pulling in forces from patrol duties and garrison positions. The fleet that assembled at Earth was the largest humanity had ever fielded: 60 combat vessels, 15 carriers, and hundreds of support ships. Commander Jake Sullivan arrived from his diplomatic mission with the captured Crathan leadership still aboard his flagship. President Nathan Cross met him personally at the orbital station. "We need to know what the Crathan are planning," the president said without preamble. "You have their war council in your brig. Make them talk." Jake brought war leader Krex to an interrogation room. The Crathan commander was defiant, even in chains, his yellow eyes burning with hatred. But Jake did not threaten him or try to intimidate him. Instead, he showed him recordings of the Crathan fleet, gathering at the edges of their space. "Your people are planning something," Jake said calmly. "Something big enough that they're pulling ships from every corner of your empire. That kind of buildup can only mean one thing: a final assault. Probably on Earth itself." Krex smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You think I will warn you? I will watch your species burn, human?" "Maybe," Jake acknowledged. "But before that happens, I want you to understand something. We have your entire war council, your best generals, your strategic planners, everyone who actually knows how to run your military effectively. If you attack Earth and fail, and you will fail, the Crathan Empire will be leaderless. Your species will tear itself apart in civil war trying to decide who's in charge." For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Krex's eyes. "You've studied our battles," Jake continued. "You know we could have killed every Crathan soldier we captured. We didn't. We showed mercy because we're not monsters. But if you force us into a fight for our homeworld, for our families, that mercy ends. We will fight with everything we have. And if your fleet comes to Earth, none of them are going home." Krex was silent for a long moment. "Vax commands the fleet," he finally said. 200 ships. They plan to jump directly into Earth orbit and demand surrender. If you refuse, they bombard the planet until you submit or die. "When?" Jake demanded. "I do not know the exact timing," Krex admitted. "But soon. Days, not weeks." Jake returned to the Fleet Command Center where Admiral Martinez was coordinating defensive preparations. "Confirmed. 200 Crathan ships inbound for Earth. We have maybe 72 hours, probably less." Martinez studied the tactical displays with a grim expression. 200 against 60. Even with our advantages, those are terrible odds. "We need help," Rear Admiral Ryan Blake said. He had been promoted again after Mars and now commanded Earth's home fleet. "Allies. Other species who might be willing to fight alongside us." Ambassador Helen Wright, watching from Earth, immediately began reaching out to every species that had supported the Council reforms. The Talvan Unity, a peaceful species that humanity had helped with trade deals, responded first. "We have only 12 warships," the Talvan representative said. "But you stood up for us when no one else would. We will stand with you now." Other species followed. Small fleets, nothing like the armada the Crathan could field, But every ship mattered. Within 48 hours, 23 additional warships from 6 different species had arrived at Earth. It was not enough to match the Krathen numbers, but it was something. More importantly, it was a statement. Humanity was not alone anymore. They had allies, species willing to risk their own ships and crews to defend Earth. Dr. Amy Foster worked frantically to upgrade as many ships as possible with humanity's best technology. Enhanced shields, improved weapons, better targeting systems. She moved from ship to ship, human and alien alike, sharing innovations that gave each vessel a better chance of survival. "We're all in this together now," Amy told a Talvin engineer as they installed a new shield generator. "Human technology, Talvin courage, and enough determination to tell the Krathen where they can stick their empire." Colonel Marcus Stone prepared his Marines for the possibility of boarding actions or even ground combat if Krathen forces made it to Earth's surface. His soldiers trained alongside troops from allied species, learning to coordinate despite language and cultural differences. "If they get past the fleet," Marcus told his officers, "we'll fight them in every city, every town, every damn street if we have to. Earth doesn't fall. Not while we're still breathing." Lieutenant Sophie Grant led a massive training exercise for the combined fighter forces. Human pilots flew alongside Talvin pilots, sharing tactics and techniques. The exercises revealed something important. The alien pilots flew rigidly by the book, just like the Krathen. The humans flew creatively, unpredictably. "Watch what the human pilots do," Sophie told the alien fighters. "Then do the opposite of what you were taught. Forget the manual. Forget the rules. Think like a predator, not a formation." When the Krathen fleet finally arrived, dropping out of faster-than-light travel directly at Earth's doorstep, they found a surprise waiting for them. Not just the expected human defenders, but a multi-species coalition that outnumbered their intelligence estimates. Supreme General Vax studied his tactical display with cold calculation. 83 vessels against our 200. The numbers still favor us significantly. And most of those additional ships are from minor species with limited combat experience. This changes nothing. He opened a communication channel to Earth. "This is Supreme General Vax of the Krathen War Fleet. We have come to settle accounts. You have humiliated the Krathen Empire twice. That ends today. Surrender immediately, submit to Krathen rule, and we will show mercy. Refuse, and we will reduce your homeworld to ash. You have 10 minutes to decide." President Nathan Cross responded personally. "General Vax, you've made a long trip for nothing. Earth does not surrender, not to you, not to anyone. If you want this world, you'll have to take it, and I promise you, the cost will be higher than you can imagine." "So be it," Vax replied, cutting the communication. "All ships, attack formation, begin the assault." The battle for Earth began with the largest coordinated attack in human history. Every ship, human and allied, moved according to a plan that Admiral Martinez and her staff had worked on for 72 hours straight. It was not a traditional battle plan. There were no neat formations, no orderly advances. It was organized chaos, designed to create maximum confusion in the Krathen ranks. Commander Jake Sullivan led the carrier forces, launching over 1,000 fighters in the opening minutes of battle. "All pilots, you know the drill. Hit fast, hit hard, and don't give them time to adapt. Make every shot count. We're fighting for our homes today. Show them what that means." Ryan Blake's destroyers formed a screen around Earth itself, ready to intercept any Krathen ship that broke through the main battle line. His orders were simple. Nothing gets past. Not one ship, not one missile. Earth must be protected at all costs. Sophie Grant flew at the head of Gold Squadron, leading them straight into the heart of the Krathen formation. Her fighters were outnumbered. Victory's entire weapons array fired simultaneously, a concentrated blast of plasma and kinetic energy that would have vaporized most ships. The Krathen flagship's shields held for exactly 3 seconds before collapsing. The following shots carved through armor and hull, tearing deep into the massive warship's interior. Supreme General Vax felt his ship dying around him. Alarms screamed as systems failed across the flagship. The human carrier that had made this impossible run was a burning wreck, but it had accomplished its mission. The Krathen command ship was crippled. All ships continue the assault, Vax ordered, refusing to yield even as his own vessel began to fail. We will not. His words were cut off as Colonel Marcus Stone's Marines materialized on the bridge. They had teleported directly from Earth's surface, using the flagship's failing shields as an opening. Marcus himself appeared behind Vax's command throne, a plasma rifle aimed at the general's head. It's over, Marcus said quietly. Order your fleet to stand down or we start taking prisoners the hard way. Vax looked around his bridge. Half his officers were dead or wounded. Human soldiers stood at every critical station. His flagship was disabled, and through the view screens he could see the battle turning decisively against his forces. The humans and their allies were pushing back, destroying Krathen ships faster than they were losing their own. He had lost, not through bad luck or trickery, but because the humans had simply outfought him. All Krathen vessels cease fire, Vax said, his voice heavy with defeat. Lower shields and prepare to be boarded. The battle is over. Not every Krathen ship obeyed immediately. Some commanders, too proud to surrender, kept fighting. But without coordination from the flagship, without a unified strategy, they were picked apart by human forces that never stopped adapting, never stopped finding new ways to win. When the last Krathen ship finally surrendered 3 hours later, the cost had been terrible on both sides. Humanity had lost 23 warships and over 15,000 sailors and marines. Their allied species had lost 8 ships. But the Krathen fleet was destroyed with